I buried my son on a Tuesday. The California sun was a physical weight, pressing the smell of hot asphalt and wilting carnations into my skin. I stood there alone, watching the priest's lips move, but all I could hear was the mechanical hum of the nearby freeway and the roar of the silence where my family should have been. That I checked my watch every 3 minutes. I told myself my father's flight was grounded. I told myself my sister, Chloe, had simply broken down in a parking lot somewhere, paralyzed by a grief as sharp as mine. I clung to those excuses like a life raft until the first heavy clod of earth thudded against the casket lid. That's when my phone vibrated in my lace glove. That I didn't see a "thinking of you" text. I saw a link from my mother. It was a Zillow listing for a glass-walled estate in Malibu, captioned, "The fresh start Chloe deserves. We need to move fast." The asking price? $1.5 million. The exact total of my son's life insurance and the trust his grandfather left behind. While I was losing my world, they were measuring for curtains. That I drove home with the AC on full blast, but the car still smelled like the funeral, a cloying mix of industrial floor wax and death. The silence in my house didn't feel like peace, it felt like an indictment. I didn't cry. Instead, an icy clarity took hold, a cold precision that started in my fingertips and moved to my heart. That I opened my laptop and logged into our shared family calendar. There it was, hidden in plain sight. 2 weeks ago, the day after the accident, my mother had booked a design consultation in Malibu for today at 2 p.m. They hadn't missed the funeral because of a crisis. They had RSVP'd to a real estate showing while my son was still in the morgue. That I pulled up the spreadsheet I called the ledger. Row 42, $15,000 for Chloe's wellness retreat. Row 58, $4,000 for my father's gambling oversight. For years, I had been their ATM, buying their love in monthly installments. Psychologists call this intermittent reinforcement, the way a gambler keeps hitting a button for a random reward. I had been the rat in their cage, pushing the lever until I nearly died of exhaustion. But the lever was broken now. The pounding on my door started at dawn. It wasn't a knock of sympathy, it was the aggressive thumping of creditors coming to collect. When I opened it, my mother brushed past me, smelling of expensive perfume and artificial concern. Behind her, Chloe hovered, her phone already out, filming the aesthetic shadows of my darkened hallway. "You aren't answering your texts, Sarah," my mother sighed, her voice trembling with a rehearsed fragility. "We've been sick with worry. Look at this place. It's a tomb." She placed a thick, blue-backed folder on the kitchen island. "It's a voluntary conservatorship. Just until the grief passes. We'll handle the insurance payout and the trust. You just need to rest." This is the Savior Gaslight. It's a narcissistic pivot where the predator reimagines themselves as the paramedic. They weren't trying to steal a dead child's legacy. In their minds, they were rescuing an unstable woman from the burden of her own wealth. I looked out the window and saw Chloe's car parked at the curb. She was adjusting a ring light on her dashboard, preparing to narrate my mental collapse for her followers. To them, my son's death wasn't a tragedy, it was a rebranding opportunity. That I sat in the cold blue light of my monitor, watching the digital trap snap shut. My mother and sister were playing checkers, fueled by a frantic greed to cover their tracks. But I had spent years documenting the very coloring books they mocked. I wasn't just an illustrator, I was a record keeper. That I called my attorney, a man who specialized in the kind of financial rot my family breathed. "The Malibu escrow is open," he told me. "And Chloe's boutique debt is officially linked to your parents' joint accounts." That I didn't scream or throw the blue-backed folder. I simply sent a single, encrypted file to the IRS fraud division. It contained the ledger, every gift, every co-signed loan, and every offshore transfer they had forced me to facilitate to avoid their own tax liabilities. By trying to declare me incompetent, they had invited the very scrutiny that would dismantle them. That I transferred a single dollar to Chloe's account. It was the trigger transaction that alerted the bank to her flagged activity. While they were dreaming of ocean views, I was cutting the safety net I had woven for them over 32 years. The hunters had become the prey, trapped in a cage of their own making. The silence that followed was the first real peace I had known in a decade. Within 48 hours, the fresh start in Malibu evaporated. The IRS freeze hit my parents' accounts like a physical blow, turning their credit into ash overnight. Chloe's social media wasn't filled with mental health awareness anymore. It was scrubbed clean as the debt collectors began circling her leased life. They tried to call, of course. My phone lit up with 92 missed calls in a single afternoon, a frantic, screeching symphony of, "How could you?" and "We're family." I didn't block them. I simply changed the locks on the vacation house and revoked their access to the shared cloud where they kept their curated lies. I sat in my kitchen, the morning sun finally feeling warm instead of oppressive. I used the $1.5 million to establish the Leo Vance Memorial Garden, a place where other grieving parents could sit in the shade of magnolias that didn't smell like a funeral parlor. I didn't lose my family that day. I finally stopped carrying the weight of people who only loved the version of me that paid their bills. I am no longer a safety net. I am the mountain.